Welcome to Unbroken Arrows, Healing Through the Hunt. This afternoon, we are still at the 2024 Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, and I'm here with my co-host, Catherine.
Hello.
My son, Trey, and he isn't going to do anything vocally, I guess. He's just going to say hi with us.
Hey.
Okay. And our guest is Keng Yang. According to Keng's Instagram profile, he is an upland hunter, a waterfowl hunter, a hunting mentor, and an outdoor enthusiast. I first came across learning about Keng with Outdoor News. I'm a subscriber to that, and last year about this time there was an article, and in that article the title included him describing himself as an adult onset hunter. I also heard Keng recently on Fan Outdoors in the radio program on KFAN out of the Twin Cities. So, Keng, welcome to our podcast.
Hey guys, thanks for having me here.
Thanks for being here. So, why don't you tell us about adult onset hunter? What does that mean?
Yeah, so adult onset hunter is someone who basically has picked up hunting later in their life. I'd say 18 or older, right? And they want to start hunting, and there's no one to help them, right? They don't have any set traditions, any set skills or help, and so that's my definition of an adult onset hunter.
Okay, so, and you identify as that, so
Yeah.
who got you involved in hunting then?
My dad actually got me involved in hunting.
Okay.
And it's funny because he's been hunting forever, his whole life, pretty much. And I never picked it up until until I got my dog, but he's the one who
Right.
helped me get started.
Sure, okay. And that is something I was going to ask you about as well.
Yeah.
Your dog is kind of a success story, if I remember right, in terms of the hunting tradition, right? So
Yes.
Tell us about your dog.
Yeah, so my family, we've always had German wire hairs. I remember when I was little, I was like, "Man, Dad, your dogs stink. They're ugly. They're naughty. I do not like these dogs at all." But I've always been passionate about animals, right? I loved animals, and one day he said he's gonna buy a dog and breed her and then sell her and then keep a puppy, right? And I said, "Whoa, don't do that to the dog. Like, let me look at her. Maybe I'll keep her, right?" And so instantly I saw her and I liked her and I loved her, and so I was like, I'm gonna keep her. And so brought her home, and I told myself, what's next, right? Well, how do I give her the best life possible? And so the only thing to do that is pick up hunting, and so that's where I got into hunting with her.
Okay,
So, yeah.
Nice. Now, here at the Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, you have been speaking about the title of your talk is A Guide to Pheasant Hunting Public Lands.
Yes.
And that is something that I remember hearing on Fan Outdoors, that you really try to hunt public lands almost exclusively?
Yep, almost like 99%. There's only one property where I've hunted on private land, but
Okay.
it's pretty much 99%.
And mostly in Minnesota?
Minnesota and Iowa.
Iowa.
Yep.
Okay. And if I recall again correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but you also try to go to new spots. Very rarely do you hunt the same spot twice.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm an explorer, right? Like I like seeing new pieces of property, new scenery, right? And so I'm always trying to challenge myself in exploring these new places to become a better hunter. I did tell my dad one time, I was like, "Dad, we should buy like a 150-acre property and just plant it and put pheasants on there." He goes, "Yeah, but you won't like it." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Because you're gonna get bored of it."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "You're gonna go there, park, you know where to walk. You're gonna get bored of it. After you hunt your private land, where you're gonna go next? You're gonna go public land next door." And so he goes, rather than doing that, maybe let's just stick to public land. There's hundreds of acres, thousands of acres available. So, yeah.
In some states, in Nebraska is where I am from, and Nebraska, I guess, if you compare, I think South Dakota and Minnesota, Iowa, I think Nebraska may be, of the four states, they might have the smallest amount of total acres. But they do, as I was growing up, they had a lot of the CRP type things, and that habitat was excellent hunting habitat. What types of challenges do you find when you are hunting a new property? How do you go about scouting it? How do you want to be successful, but I think that from when I've heard you talk that's not the end all save all. If you go out and probably don't get any birds, you're okay with that too. But
Yeah.
what are the challenges for that? A new property that you're hunting?
I guess the new challenges is for me, is how to get through it the fastest, right? Like you get into a field and there's shrubs over here, there's cattails over here, there's food plots over here. So like, where do you go first, right? Like, how do you start strategizing that and doing that in the quickest time possible? So, because for me, I'm always trying to get my limit, right? I'm always trying to chase my limit of birds. And I'm trying to cover these fields as efficiently and as effectively as possible. So when I get to a new property, I'm like, dang, what's the game plan? How do I tackle this? And so you don't know until you actually walk it. That's the thing too. So, that's always a challenge, but yeah.
It's one of those things you think you have a plan, and as soon as you get there, it's like, all right, scratch this, something else.
Yep.
How do you identify these public properties then?
I just use Onyx, and I just look at, use Onyx maps. Everyone's familiar with Onyx maps, and I just pick a spot. I'm like, that looks good. Like, whether it's a 800-acre property or a 150-acre property, I'm gonna treat it the same. I'm like, does this have cover, right? That's just, or how close is it to the gas stations? How close is it to other pieces of property? I'm looking for pieces that, while sometimes there's properties that kind of stick out or just stand out by themselves in the middle of nowhere, I also look for more like, I guess, like a chain of properties, right? That way I can tackle them faster. So, yeah.
With hunting on public lands, I've done a little bit myself, and you're going to have run-ins with other people. What would you suggest to someone that is worried about hunting public because they don't want to mess up, they don't want to offend someone, anything like that? What's the etiquette that you would suggest?
Yeah, the etiquette would be if someone's there, go somewhere else or wait till they're off. Especially if you're new, like you're scared, right? Like that will hopefully slowly ease you in. But as you become more comfortable, you'll start noticing too that people will walk in on you, right? Or like there will be two groups separately in the field, and so you're trying to understand how that works, right? And so at first, just go to a different field, right? Build up that comfortability, and then eventually, somebody may walk up on you, and that's okay, right? You just continue the hunt. You walk faster, first of all,
Right.
You walk faster so you get through the field first, and also, I've done it plenty of times where I walk behind hunters, or I've seen hunters across a 500-acre field, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hunt on this side because I know they're not gonna get over here in time. I could just loop around them. And so the thing with public land too is it's available for all, right? It's all of ours, and so it's just having that respect in terms of not crawling over them, right? Not crawling over other people, staying your distance, but I people have walked in on me, and I've walked in on people plenty of times. So.
Sure.
Yeah, but not like right behind them.
Right.
Give them some space.
Yeah, give them some space.
And obviously it's going to happen where you aren't even going to know someone's there.
Yeah, exactly.
You're in a mile or two, and suddenly you find someone. Just be nice about it.
Yeah.
If you run into them, say hi, how's it going? Figure out maybe what their game plan is so that you can go around them.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's what happened to me this last year. I was hunting one of my favorite spots, and this guy had beaten me to where the birds are on the other side. And so I quickly ran up to him and I was like, hey, do you want to hunt together? This piece that we're about to walk could use two people, right? And so I told him like where the birds are going to come out of, right? Sharing those kind of, experiences with them too. Like, that sharing piece will build that relationship.
Right, that's a great question, and I was thinking the same thing. It's like I would think that there would be an opportunity also to meet people.
Yep.
And make that offer. Hey, do you want to hunt this piece together?
Yeah.
I know when you don't hunt, you're not familiar with somebody else's hunting style. There may be a little bit something there, but that's true. What types of organizations I'm going to guess that you're involved with Pheasants Forever, but what type of organizations that promote public land access, conservation, habitat? What kinds of organizations do you take part in or belong to?
Yeah, I also serve on the Minnesota chapter board of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. I also serve with our local chapters of Delta Waterfowl.
Okay.
And then I also do a lot of state work too. So volunteering my time in the R3 Council with the state of Minnesota, and then also serving time on the Natural Heritage Advisory Committee, which is another part of the Minnesota DNR. And so I do a lot of involvement just because all these groups, they all have kind of the same goal, right? So how can I communicate what's going on between these organizations effectively and timely, right? So like the non-game program, Natural Heritage Advisory Committee, they might have an initiative that aligns with BHA, and they don't have anybody to tell them those initiatives line up. And so that's why I like being involved in all these groups at the same time. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but keeps me busy.
Yeah,
so.
it keeps you out of trouble.
Yeah.
Well, and you make connections too, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's when you're trying to find areas to hunt, and those conversations obviously come up,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
For the most part, are you hunting by yourself? Are you going with friends?
your dad.
What's your like normal?
Yeah. So like in the normal season, opener, it would be like me, my dad, and maybe like 2 or 3 uncles. Once after that, everyone, the ones who aren't serious, they drop off. Well, it's usually just me and my dad. Only seldomly, like rarely do I go by myself, just because I still have a fear of being out there by myself in terms of safety, right? Like if I trip in a cattail slough, who's gonna find me?
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
I
You gotta
like.
have one of those like I've fallen, I need help and can't get up.
You should do a commercial with that in the field.
Yeah, I have a story of that, and that's a legitimate concern in
Oh,
terms of
for
safety.
sure.
Yeah.
A teacher of mine years ago was pheasant hunting and stepped in a hole and severely broke his leg.
Yeah.
And didn't have his cell phone. It was a scary situation.
Yeah.
There was one of our bow techs from Shields. Fabulous guy. I never got to meet him, but I've heard plenty of stories. And he was on I believe it was an elk hunt in the mountains by himself. He had his GPS transmitter. He ended up having a heart attack one night in the mountains by himself. His wife, they had a ritual. He'd send him a message every day or every night or whatever it was. And so I was like, I haven't heard from him. Like, this is the last place that he told me he was. And they ended up finding him, and he had passed away. Which is so incredibly sad. And at the same time, like, what a way to go. Like, in the
Yeah.
mountains, by yourself, doing what you love.
Right.
But
Right.
it's definitely something you have to think about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's why I always try to hunt with someone. Mostly my dad. That way we keep an eye on each other. So.
And who gets there's usually a path that you can identify that this might be the best path to walk. Who gets that path? You or your dad?
It's mostly usually my dad.
Okay, there you go. Right answer.
Because he walks faster. But because he gets the best path, he also gets to walk the toughest paths too. So
Sure.
It's a trade-off.
it's a trade-off. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you get to walk that path, but you get to walk in the middle of the cattails because you can walk through it faster. So
Yeah, this sounds very similar to when I was young and high school age hunting with my brother. I always used a single shotgun, and he had the pump, so he always took the path where the birds were, we thought were going to fly, and I was the honorary dog that went through all the rough stuff and to try to flush things out. So
yeah.
So Keng, what do you do for a career?
I work in IT with Optum Tech.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yep.
So
Been doing that for about 7 years now.
okay.
Yeah.
Nice. In that, did you say you live in the Minneapolis area? Is that
Yes.
okay?
Yep. Yeah, completely different from IT to hunting, but
Yeah, a little bit.
it works.
Evens it out.
Yeah.
You don't get burnt out.
Yeah.
So you talk about being a hunting mentor.
Yeah.
How do you in what ways do you do that?
Yeah, so when I started hunting, none of my friends hunted, right? So with this litter, I was like, you guys, who wants a dog? Like, just take.
We gotta have a crew.
Yeah, we gotta have a crew. Like, I want to spend out the time outdoors, and I want my friends there as much as me. So that's how I started kind of mentoring a little bit, is just getting my friends out, right? Showing them, even though I've only hunted for a year, I was like, we gotta go. Like, this is the time to do it. We're
Right.
young, like, we just knew this is fun, exciting. And that's how I started kind of mentoring. The second year, I went into more of a structured program by myself. So I kind of developed a program to get people, like transplant people, so people who are from out of state, right, that have moved to Minnesota, recruiting them because they're the ones looking for community. They're the ones looking for friends, right? And so they were my target next. And so I just kind of developed like a hunting mentor program where I think it's effective just because it builds relationships and it builds tradition. Those are the two keys. I've seen a lot of hunting mentor programs where they kind of all right, come for the weekend. We're gonna take you to shoot a gun, take you out to shoot pheasants or turkeys or whatever, and then once Sunday comes, you're on your own, right? Like once the program's done, they're on their own, and they've only been there for 3 days. So how do you expect them to come back again, right? So one of the big things with my program goals is it's all volunteer work. First of all, this is not through any organization, specific organization. It's not through me. Like I don't make any money out of it, but it's passion. And so my goal with all my stuff, mentoring, is how do we make them buy a license again, right? Like if we could get them to buy a license again, that's a win, you know. So
absolutely. So what type of advice, and whether we're talking about an adult onset hunter or somebody that, as we were talking about earlier, I'm in that of the R3 genre, the R3 era. No, within the R3 initiative. I'm in that reactivation side of things.
Yeah, era sounds right.
What?
Like era? Yeah.
Era?
Like Taylor Swift era.
There we go.
Sure.
If you're in your Taylor Swift area too, that's fine. You can say it.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, you talk about, we're looking for another demographic of listeners,
There you go.
so
We just hit one.
We just hit one,
Taylor Swift fans are crazy.
Right,
Yeah.
so let's add Travis Kelce, and now we've got it all, right?
No
So,
kidding.
good grief, yeah. No. But what kind of advice would you give to somebody that is reactivating into that era? And are there organizations or groups that maybe cater toward that more so than others?
I don't think there's groups out there that are catered more towards them, because I think they already have the mindset, or they have the skill and the mindset to hunt already, right? So they're just reactivating based on their own reason. But I think what brings that reactivation if someone has been reactivated, the first thing I would say is seek a community, right? So friends, and also seek tradition. Make traditions, right? For example, like deer camp, right? People go to deer camp even though they don't hunt, but their dad has always taken them, right? So they just go because it's a time to celebrate and have fun. And so you still buy a license, right, in case the deer comes by, but that's like a tradition that you should start building through any kind of, like not just through as a reactivated hunter, but as a new hunter, anything like that. So
right. One of the things that I look back on, and during that time period where in my professional career in education, raising a family, hunting took a backseat. And that's one of the things that, with my kids, I feel bad about the fact that I didn't take them out hunting, specifically hunting, as much as I did fishing. We spent a lot of time. We've got a family cabin in north of Park Rapids, Minnesota, and we've been going there, all my life and all my kids' life as well.
Yeah.
But as far as, encouraging, I guess what I'm trying to do with my message is trying to encourage those young families, young parents that have kids and that are old enough to go out in the field, maybe not to carry a gun yet, but, do those things even though you think it's too busy, you're too busy, and all those kinds of things, because it's a big regret for me.
Yeah.
Make the time.
Make the time to share that love for the outdoors, share the love for hunting, and it sounds like your dad hunted.
Yep.
But that wasn't something that was you were into at the time.
Right.
But and I don't know if there was anything he could have done differently, because as kids,
this is my dad. We're gonna argue. So I don't think there's anything he could have done differently.
Yeah, and kids have a mind of their own too. So,
Right,
but you came to that realization.
Yeah,
So that's a neat story.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. So, well, appreciate you being on our podcast, Keng. Pleasure to meet you in person.
No, thank you for having me. It's great to meet you as well. And Catherine and Trey.
Yes.
Great to meet you guys as well.
Yeah, you as well.
And I hope Trey is able to edit this in a way that gets most of the beginning of this podcast erased, because it was bad.
The first 10 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. I was struggling. My blood sugar's dropping, I think. I need something. So
I better hear a Taylor Swift song in the background when he's talking about it.
Yes. Can you edit that in?
get that in
Can we
the
copyright that
Taking a
somehow?
copyright.
Oh boy. Well,
We can sing it. We can try it.
thank
Yeah,
you,
should we
Keng, for
sing?
being
What's the
here.
song?
And how was your experience at Pheasant Fest
Oh,
this
it's
year?
great. One of the best shows I've been to. So
How many have you been to?
I think 3. So, but this is one of the better one. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know I thanked you for being on here, and here we go. So I guess we'll just continue with this. But South Dakota, how much time hunting in South Dakota have you done?
Oh, none.
Really?
Yeah. none.
Really?
Yeah.
So
next year.
Next year. Okay. Well,
So hide your birds.
Well,
He's coming for him.
you know,
Hide your birds.
I know this young lady that is a big pheasant hunter, and I bet you that if you
He might not like it. We hunt all private stuff.
oh, that's true. Oh,
See?
well,
he might just deny me if I ask.
yeah, well, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe he should introduce you to hunting on more of
I
the
know,
public
I
lands.
know.
Yeah.
I would not offer up. No, I would not give up the offer of a private land hunt. So.
Okay, we might be able to figure something out.
Okay. Well, yeah, that sounds like a plan for next year then. Yeah. So.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome.
Okay. Again, thanks for being on. Appreciate it, and I hope our paths cross again.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.